half. Use 1x4 on the steps. Picked 3 poles, saplings I peeled last fall. Let them dry, peel them. And they're just pine. Put 1x4 steps on them, about 1 foot apart. What I did is cut all the poles the same length. Lay them alongside each other. Drilled a 1/2-inch hole through. Put a 1/2-inch bolt through, an old scrap bolt with a couple washers in between each piece. We'll get a closer look at that. I left some of the stairs sticking out so I could hang my chainsaw on it or whatever when I'm working on the wall. So all it took was 3 poles, 1 bolt with a couple washers, and the 1x4 for the steps. And a little bit of time. I kind of cut into the poles a little bit just to get the boards to hang in there so that they fit into the poles a little bit, just so they give a little more support when you're crawling up. And that's what you got right there, just a 1/2-inch bolt. I beat over the head of the nut so that the nut couldn't back off. But you can see there's nothing elaborate. And just let the taper run out here. And here, about the bottom poles are about 2 feet apart. The total length of the poles up above are about 12, 14 feet. I can't remember what it was right now. And up near the top there, they're only about 1 foot apart. But it's about 3 feet up to where they tie together. Staple in that pole, the spreader pole, so you can spread out. And put a little 1/8-inch nylon between the ladder and the pole so that it could keep it from spreading out too far. Makes a nice little ladder, short and easy. Here's some forms I made up for the concrete blocks, 18 inches by 18 inches. I interlocked all the 2x12s inside. I cut halfway into the 2x12 on the from a groove from the bottom, and then I cut into the one above halfway, and they just interlocked. And braced up around the outside with stakes and that sort of thing. Got a concrete truck coming today to pour the concrete. You'll see that the concrete's in. I put stakes around the outside edge there so it wouldn't spread out. Spiked it good. I'm also going to fill in the center of these concrete blocks, give them a little more strength in case I need them for blocking here and there. But it's one way to make your form blocks. They'll be 1 foot deep by 18 by 16. Some of them will be 16 by 16, and I'll put some J-bolts into the top of them to secure the floor beams and floor joists to it. There, I cut down halfway into the bottom 2x12 and halfway up into the top 2x12, so they interlock and they won't spread or anything. I'll probably have a hard time breaking the foundation apart, but breaking the wood loose and getting the blocks out of here. I'll knock off the outside edges and then pull them out, and then transport them up to the building site. But I'll need 16 of them for the hunting cabin, and the other 16 will be for center supports under the other log home in Independence and the log home. And I made some extra room here in case I had excess concrete left over. But we'll see what happens. I figured it pretty close. I figured it to be about 2 cubic feet of concrete per each block, and figured it out 27 cubic feet per yard. Figured up my total. Figured it out to be just about 4 yards. And that's about it here, I guess. We'll see it when it's done. There's some railroad ties I'm using on top of the concrete blocks. They're 8'6" by 6 by 8, 6 inches by 8 inches by 8 and 8'6" long. And I'll cut a lap join them all. So it'll be where every connection is, they'll be spiked and then secured to the concrete blocks. That good solid foundation for a hunting cabin. Blocks. Some of them 16 by 18, some of them 16 by 16. And the form there, you can see how I broke it down. They're 11 inches deep, and 8 of them I made the J-bolt in the top for securing the corner. It's just a 1/2 inch bolt with a J on the end that you buy in the store for 35 cents a piece. 4 yards of concrete was $240. You can see it rained out a little bit, but they'll be solid. I slowly have to dig them out of there, but that's the way it goes. Got enough for foundations for quite a bit. I rolled them up a ramp. Onto the top of the big blocks up there where you see them sitting. Just as 2 by 12. Rolled them up there. And then I took a 2 by 12 from there and rolled them right onto the back of my Jeep. Down to the gate on the back of my Jeep. Not that one there, but the other Jeep. And just laid that door down and laid the 2 by 12 on it. Real easy to do. What happens when you don't wood knife them? See, they get that green fungus on there. And then it dies and turns black with all this rain and rain, sunshine we had lately. That's what happens. A little bit on that log up there. You can scrub it off with a combination of half bleach, half water. And it comes off real easy right now. Later it'll come off hard when it dries on there. So scrub it off now. Other logs, you can see they turned out pretty well. This is the way they should be, like this here. And you can see these here, since I felled them in the winter time. That's about all the checking they get, I think. It's not bad at all. But doing real well. Wood knife them. Preserve them. What we have here is the half log. The half log was the biggest log that I had in my log pile. That was the straightest. So you take it from your log stack, bring it up, mount it on a supports like we have here. The half log is used to start the sequence of it. It'll be the first sequence of your log home to get the proper sequence going to start the log home. What we're going to do is cut this log in half. The first step we'll do is peel the log. We have it blocked there so it doesn't roll over. Peel it, preserve it, find center, slice the log in half. For right now, all we're going to do is peel it and preserve it. This is I cut this to length. This is a 25-foot log. That's figuring a 16-foot wall for the half log, the short wall. 16 foot over each corner, 18 feet. 2 feet out the back side for overhang, and that's 20 feet, and then another 5 feet out the front for the front porch. So that's what we're going to do. Next you'll see us peeling the log. felled in the winter. You can see there's still sap on there. See how easy it's peeling? Everybody thinks it's a hard job, but it's not. You've seen on the other move, or on the beginning here, how the peeling spud works. Always brace your legs well. After we get this peeled, I'll let it dry a little bit. And then we'll put the wood knife on and it'll soak in and keep this slimy cambium layer from, if it rains, gets on it and a little mold will grow there, and then it'll dry and turn black and it'll discolor your log. So we want to get the wood knife on as soon as we get it dried. Anyway, you can see how easy it is. It go right on that way till you get the other end. And I'll show you the putting preservative on. That's about all there is to it. About 10 minutes work there. That's about all. The log was further to this side of the ties and the shadow was still on it. So you know it didn't take very long. Okay. It's drying pretty quick. You can see during the winter there are some of the bugs that I'd fell them in the winter, and this spring some bugs would start getting in there, but all I did was put a nice little pattern on it. This looks real nice. They aren't into the wood or anything, they're just eating between the bark on the cambium layer. Okay, we've taken it all the way down the cambium layer. What we'll do after it dries for about 5 minutes is put wood knife on it. You just paint it on with a paintbrush. It's all it is, a pen of preservative that not the bad penna, it's some kind of denatured, but I call it wood knife. And then I'll take the chainsaw, knock off the knots. Well, I'll knock off the knots before I wood knife, so that my snap chalk line doesn't hit the knots and make the snap chalk line not show up in some areas. So that's about all it takes. What I do before I start putting the, okay, you can see the log is real straight, pretty darn straight. So if there is a curve to it, what you want to do is when you saw it in half, saw so that the curve is to the inside and outside of the wall, not up and down. What we'll have is any curve we want sideways. So when I line up down here to plumb our level from center, what we want to do is make sure that the curve is to the inside to the outside of the cabin. So the flat here and here is going to be to the inside and the outside of the cabin. That'll put the curve of the log to the inside and the outside of the cabin. And so I'll go ahead and saw the knots off, and then we'll put some preservative on it. All you do is use a brush, put it on there like that, just kind of paint it on, go kind of easy, slow strokes, or else you waste a lot of wood knife. This brush is leaking a lot of bristles. A lot of people say things like, gee, my logs are going to get dirty, dragging them up to the site and everything. All I can tell you is to peel them close to your site. Peel them close to your site, and then they won't get so dirty. The thing is, it's those little things like that, worrying about that, instead of just worrying about getting the logs out. Then you're wasting all that time worrying about things like that. The thing is, get your logs up. By the time you get done sawing between your logs, cutting off the ends, doing all these other things, what you're going to have is very little surface to clean up. So you can just scrub it with soap and water, bleaching water, whatever, and make them nice and clean looking. Don't worry about little things like that. That's the kind of things that's going to stop you from building. These bristles will brush off later. We'll wood life it again once we get it sawn in half. And we'll let this dry on here. And then we'll be able to take a level and plumb the end and both ends with a level, put a mark on it, snap chalk it, and then we'll be ready to saw it in half. But while this is drying and everything, I think we'll go ahead and set up rigging. So that's how you wood life it. That's all there is to it. Nothing to it. This is wood life right here. All it is DAP, wood life preservative. They've got all types of other type, Thompson water seal, anything without a color. If you get something in there with a color, it'll discolor your logs and that. You want to use the clear wood life. Then you can put a color stain on later if you wish or something. But this is fine for now. And keep the keep the mold off of it. Okay, what we're going to do first here is on this larger end of the log or the other end, either one, is use the same method. Don't mold the log at all. You've got it propped into position, leave it there. First off, measure across your log to find the true center. It's 11 inches, so we want a 5.5 inch, mark it 5.5 inches. Right there. Measure the other way. It's 10 and a half, so I'll make it 5 1/4. Right there. Okay, this gives you the true center of the log. You can see there's the real center right there. We want the true center. Okay, once we've found true center, we take a level, put one edge along the center line mark right there, and we rotate the level until we come plumb. So that this level valve up here, the one that's horizontal, is on level. Once it's on level and on this mark, then we know that we're going to make a straight line down the log. Got off just a bit there, okay? Wasn't much right there. Okay, we've got a line straight down the log. Down the true center, or the diametral center of the log. So then you want to take your pencil, put this line underneath, transfer it right over so you can see it from on the other side. And also on the top. Put a little mark right up here. That's what you'll line your snap chalk line up with. Once you have those up over the top, go to the other end, mark the same way on the other end. It'll be a smaller diameter, so take a different measurement, find your true center, put the middle marks up on top. Do not roll your log before you do this. Once you've got the other end set and the marks up on the top side and the bottom, then you can roll a log where the snap chalk line won't hit your supports in the center. Then once you've snapped chalk line both sides, top and bottom, or you'll probably have this off like that by then you'll be able to start sawing your log down to the other end, following the chalk lines. We'll show that. That's all there is to it. Find your center, put your level on the true center, rotate your level till you're plumb, then mark it. Go to the other end, find true center, do the same thing. Mark it, then you can move your log, roll your log so you can snap chalk it. That's all there is to it. Now we just take our snap chalk line, put it right on the mark, go to the other end. Line it up with the mark down here, draw it tight, bring it down slowly to your line, and you're ready to snap. Just go ahead and snap it. Roll your log sideways where you can see your other marks and where you won't hit your supports, and go ahead and put a snap chalk line on the other side. And then all you have to do is follow those two snap chalk lines with your chainsaw, and I'll show you how to do that. That's all there is to setting up your half log. Thank you. Okay, once you snap chalk line the other side, roll the log to the position which is easiest for you to use a chainsaw. As you come across these beams here, they're supports. So you get it like that, block her a bit. Then when you take off with your chainsaw, what you do is you wind her up, use a heavier oil mix in your chainsaw. I usually, if I'm a 1 to 24 mix, I'll go to 1 to 16 for force on the half log. That way I have plenty of oil and I won't freeze up my chainsaw. Then I use a standard chain with a brand new chain. That way I don't have to be fooling around. I don't have any special angles or anything that I put on these rakers or anything. I just use a new chainsaw, a chain blade, and go ahead and just start slicing down. I have your chainsaw, follow these lines across, get back like this, come into it, dig your dog in, and come right on through to down your line. And every once in a while, as you're leaning over the other side looking, or if you're on this side over here, I like using it this way, so I'll have it like this, following the line. But then just work your way right on down the line. Watch this side for a while, lean over and watch where your tip goes. Follow right along the blue line, and you won't have any trouble. It takes a while, probably an hour to do this here, and I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to wait for tomorrow. I get all set up. Not really into it today. Goof off. I did enough today, and I'll do some rigging, put up some rigging today, so we'll see that. That's it for the half log until we saw her in half tomorrow. Okay, what I've done here is picked a tree on either side of the cabin site, the log building site. Took a 1/2-inch cable, went around the tree, clamped it twice, and I put a spike into the tree to keep the cable from slipping down the tree. Double cabled it there so it would be a little more secure. You can put burlap around a tree if you want to save the tree, but these trees are going to be going taken down so that they won't fall on the building later. Then the cable goes right on across. I'm going just across one corner of the log building. There's the sheave there, the pulley I'll run a cable through. And wait a minute, I got a fly biting on me. Pretty heavy here in the afternoon. And you can see I dead ended it there too and double clamped it with some 1/2-inch cable clamps. These aren't going to be very big logs here, so there won't be a heck of a lot of weight. But that's the cable, the sheave, and you'll notice that the cable bows down in the center here. The center of this bow is going to be just about over the middle of the cabin, and so once I pull a log up, the pulley will slip down the cable more to the center of the cabin. Let's get a look from a ways away. The bow and the cable. Now, where the ladder is sitting is closer to one side of the cabin than it is the other. When the cable comes from the back of the Jeep up through the pulley down to the log, which is going to be laying over in there, I'll drive off with the Jeep. That will lift the log up in the air, and we'll be able to lower it on. It'll tend to pull over this way because of the weight of the log and the sag in the cable. And so it will come over towards where the base of the ladder is, more onto the side of the cabin. So figure these things out. This is a simple method here. I'll show a little more elaborate one on the other log home. This one here is real simple, no problem. There's not going to be much weight in the logs, but always weight test it. When you crawl up the trees to put on the cable, make sure you have a ladder tall enough so you aren't falling off. Make sure you got strong enough cable in the first place. All your parts are all good, in good shape, so that they don't break on you. And that's about it here for the rigging. I'll show you more once we get the rigging on there. Today, to slice this half log. For right now, I put this at an angle to where I can get the chainsaw in my hand and get a good start on the line here. So what I've done is I cut filed all the both angles at the same angle. If you can't do it yourself and get them right, get them close so you're cutting straight, have a professional saw filer down at the shop do it. I just use a standard 35-degree angle cut file. Put extra oil, like I said yesterday on the film, put extra oil in the gas. And what I do is when I put the chainsaw in, put the dog in, I start cutting down the line until I get all the way through the other side. I start back here, come at an angle, you'll watch me do that, and come down. Now I have the power head weight down here because I can use my knee here to lift up on the saw if I have to correct on the line on the other side. I can use my knee against this head this way to force the blade back into line on the other side. But yet, if I want to come up this way, the weight of the power head helps me pull up this way. So we'll watch it happen and see what happens. This is cold, so it might take a minute. Should have warmed it up, huh? Okay, that's how I start right there. Now what I'm going to do is turn the log sideways a little bit so that I can watch the line on the other side. See, I've already gotten a start. So I want to get this blue line that's underneath up here where I can lean over and take a look at it. So what I'll do is just go like that, put my block back under there. I'm already coming off the line a little bit on the other side. So what I'll do is I'm on the downside of the line, so I'll just let the power head weight down a little bit, and push down a little bit, and that line will come right back on the line on the other side. Okay. What we're doing here is taking our chainsaw, coming down the blue line on my side over here, and sticking the dog in, then follow it, forcing the nose on down the blue line. As you can see here, I've come off the blue line a little bit already. And so what I'll do is I'll be pressing down on this chainsaw over here a little bit to come back on that line. Okay, you want to hold off for a second? Still going? Always lead with the tip of your bar. Lead, so whenever you come back over here, it allows your bar to keep following this line that you've already started over here. So always lead with the nose first, come down as far as you can with your chainsaw like that. Then come over here and come down just a little bit more and go more following the line over here. That makes it easier to follow that line over there. So just come a little bit over here and go as far as you can over here with that until your chainsaw head hits the log over here. Then come over here, come a couple inches, and take that, sweep this down as far as you can go down the line. That makes it so much easier to do. But you still get a little off. You won't, once you get into, we roll it flat and you see us smoothing the flat side, then you'll see how easy it is to clean up. So there we'll go ahead. notice here you should be wearing goggles when you're doing this. You can see I'm getting sauced in my face. But you see it's hot and I'll be sweaty, so it's not for you to do. Get in a cool spot, do it. Don't hurry so much as I do, and you won't be getting these sauce chips in your face. Okay. You see how I goofed up there a little bit, but you won't notice that by the time I get around to turning over, flattening it, and cleaning up the edge with a knife. But we're going to put the rope around here again, right up here, to keep this from slipping off and falling and hurting anybody. You noticed I was always hitting the oiler here. You want to keep giving your bar lots of oil. Is there anything I could think of that I forgot?
No, I think it pretty well sums it up.
And I'll keep going right on out the end. And you'll see that, and you'll see it drift off a little bit, but not much. It's not pinching my saw. See, by the time, the thickness of my blade here, by the time the saw log settles down in on back there, it isn't even pinching the bar here. Sometimes if you get a real heavy half log, you'll want to be sticking little shims in here, little pieces of blocking, a 1/4 inch thick or something, to keep this from falling down there and pinching your bar. That, we'll go ahead and finish her out.
Or did you?
I think so.
Well, that's
we only
it.
put about, I got too much pressure in the gas tank on there. That's why it stopped. You're going to be running an overheated saw, so always make sure you got the air vents cleaned out around it, the air fins. Keep all your crud out from in between so it doesn't have a heat buildup in there. Causes your coils to go out. Also, the tank pressurizes if your vent isn't clear on it, and filters clean, things like that. You always want to check all that. Keep your air filter clean. Okay, about an hour is all it took, and it looks a little rough along the edges here because I was using a chisel bit instead of a standard chain, but that'll clean up real nice. You'll see here in a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to untie the ropes and we'll split her open like a watermelon, huh?
Right, you got it.
Got her going, partner.
Okay, always stand on the uphill side like I said on anything else, and then just let it slide off. There you are. And what we're going to do now is take the chainsaw, and you'll see we got these rough areas here. And I'll show you how to do that, how to smooth that out so it's halfway reasonably smooth. Then we won't worry about it too much because what we're going to have is insulation and tar paper between this and the floor. So we'll just get this reasonably flat, take off the rough spots. Don't worry about it too much. You know, you're going to get all excited, say, gee, this isn't like a board out of the mill, but that don't matter. When you get all that weight on there, the air logs and so forth, it'll flatten out real good. You won't even notice it. Thank you. Keep your chainsaw going with the grain. Don't try to go across. You're going to start bouncing because you're going to hit the hard growth rings. Come at it with it. Sweep. That way. And keep your RPMs up so it doesn't hang up and gouge it. So that's what we're doing here. You'll kind of see what I'm doing. going to be about your roughest job on the whole thing. To me, that's about the roughest job. The one that I worry about more than anything is the half log. Usually because you're running high speeds a long time with the chainsaw, afraid to burn it up or whatever. You see, when I was going through between the logs with the chainsaw, you also, when you drop back, you got to make sure your chain bar doesn't come out and come around and clip you somehow. If you're using a nose guard, your tip will always be on the other side. You'll have to take your log nose guard, chainsaw clear back out the other end, or take off your nose guard and then slip your saw out. So, most things you can watch out for. Now all I'm going to do is take a draw shave, trim this edge off a little bit, just to kind of dress it up, and make it easier for the water to leak off or whatever. And after we wood knife it, then we'll set them up to the side and wait until we get the foundation blocks in place. Wood knife, same thing we used on the other logs when we put them on the outside. And I guess that's about it. Okay, now when you are putting in your windows and your door frames, you're going to need a flat surface like this. So this is a good time to get experience in flattening this. If you want to work on this and get it perfect by doing the same thing I was sweeping with a chainsaw, do it. And that way you'll feel more confident when you put your door frames, your window frames in. You'll be cutting into a log, you'll be slicing down into the log that's in the wall. You'll be slicing down into it in a couple of spots, and then knocking that out. And then what you're going to be doing is taking your chainsaw and sweeping it like this and getting a nice flat surface until you got it where you put your level on there and your window frame is flat and level. So it's a good time right now when this log is out in the open to get experience. And if you run your chain with the grain like this or like this, if you find you're like this and you're hanging up and banging, then come to the other side. But keep your chainsaw going with the grain if you can, because that'll keep it from bouncing and it'll make you a nice flat surface. You can make these almost like boards if you want, and we're pretty darn close to that right now. That's it. Thank you.
Now when we're getting ready to cut these window frames, Jerry, they want to make sure they don't have any spikes in that area, so they can kind of plan that ahead, or what?
Yeah, what we do is when we're spiking our walls, we're going to be taking and putting a little S for spike or R for rebar that shows where the rebar is in the wall. You want to mark out these areas ahead of time as you're putting your rebar or spike in. Mark it, and that way you know where it is later, so you're not ruining your chain on a spike. Okay, what we have here is a rough site. We want to stay on undisturbed soil. What I've done is I've placed the long side of the cabin, the 20-foot side, facing southwest. Okay, I know that I need a square or rectangular foundation, 16 feet by 20 feet. That's the outside dimension. So what I'm going to do is measure 16 feet from these little stakes and 20 feet from stake to stake on the front and the back. After that, then we'll run a diagonal, which means from a corner stake to the opposite corner. We want that dimension to be the same as the dimension from that corner to that corner. That gives you a rectangular foundation rather than a trapezoid or how it would lay at an angle, but still have your proper distances. So what we're going to do first, measure, just put in some little rough stakes, you know, don't get real particular. This little hunting cabin, I'm not going to worry about it too much, so we'll just give you a rough idea of what we're doing. Now also watching to make sure that I'm under the cable so that when I pull the logs up on, that they'll come up on the corner of the cabin somewhere and then I can roll them anywhere. So we've measured, we placed the stakes, so we got 16 feet and a couple inches off, but once we get the concrete blocks down there, then we'll shift them around a little bit more. Okay, we went to the other end, measured 16 feet here. You can see I'm still on the undisturbed soil here. It's where the cat took off the topsoil. Okay, that's 16 feet there. Now we measure and we put the stakes in. At 20 feet here. Okay, then we went out here and we measured to make sure we had 20 feet here and put our stakes in. Now what we have to do is measure from this stake to that stake, opposite corners. Okay, There you are, 25 foot 6 inches. Okay, now you want that dimension over there to be the same thing, within an inch or two. You don't need to be perfect, but for right now, we'll just get them roughed in so we can bring the concrete blocks here, set them so that they're cornered right at these stakes. Then we'll shift them around a bit. We'll level them later. For right now, we're just going to place them so we know generally where the outlying lines of the cabin are. Okay, that was 25.6. And we're 27.9 here, or 26, or rather 25.9 here. So we're within 2 inches. So we're not going to worry about it right now. We'll get a little more close as we do it. But this will generally get you in the general area where you want to be. If you have to shift to make this distance change from corner to corner, you have to move 2 stakes. On the stake side, I'd say these here 2 are on the 20-foot side. You'll have to take them up and either move them left or right, directly left or right. That makes both this dimension get smaller and that dimension get bigger if you need to change one or the other. So you got to shift 2 stakes, at least 2 stakes, on the same side of the cabin. Or you could take these 2 here and shift them left or right. But just only 2. You have to do 2 stakes at once. You can't just move 1 stake and expect to get your diagonals correct. Because what happens is you can have the same dimensions on both ends and both the front and the back, but the whole thing can be out of square. So in order to make it square, you measure diagonals so you have the same distance across from corner to corner. That's how you do it. Put here is place the temporary concrete blocks with the outside corner, this corner out here, right where the stakes were. That'll be the outside edge of our floor. We don't want to leave the block out beyond the floor because the rain can come in and get underneath the block and underneath our floor joists. We just roughly placed them all the way around, all the corner blocks where they're at, kind of rough leveled them. We ran another diagonal check from corner to corner and got them within an inch. What we're going to do tomorrow morning is we're going to take the blocks and level them from corner to corner and from one to the other, and we'll show you how to do that tomorrow. For right now, we just wanted them in rough so we can get a feel of what we're doing. There'll be other temporary supports going later, but we want to set the main support blocks first, and that's what we're going to do. So for now, all we've done is set them close to the corner marks, got our diagonals close, and that's it for now. Thank you. Okay, what we're doing here is roughing the blocks into height. We're using a line level and going from corner to corner. We've measured in the 16 by 22. We've changed it to 22 feet in length. 16 by 22. We've got those dimensions square, and then we diagonaled like we showed you before. And you'll notice that the front of the site, we picked the lowest point in the site, which is that concrete block clear out there. It's sitting right on top of undisturbed soil. From that point, we leveled all the other blocks into a level height, a level plane. There's one there is going to probably be the lowest into the ground right there. I'm going to dig out further around that. And what we're doing is we're going to line up the 6 by 8 beams with the outside corner, the outside edge, just like this one here, to this outside edge right here is where our beams will be, the outside of the beams will be lined up to. So when we took our diagonals, we measured right from that corner. And also our physical dimension from 16 and 22 feet. Dig down the hole, get close to the proper depth, and then just kind of weasel them down in by wiggling them. And then fill back in around them. And we'll be running a straight edge down the line to get that in line. It's not a line yet, and this one not either. And so as we go along here, you'll see we'll have them all the proper dimension, outside dimension, and in level. Here's a level valve right here, a string level that we're using. And it's on the string, and we just take the string across the site to the corners, and I'll show you how to use that in a minute. But this is how you generally do it. You get the blocks roughly dug in to where they're going to go. You can see they're not too far out. right now. Then you start bringing them down in height until the string is running along the outside edge here and you've got a straight line, and also you're level on top. Then when we're done with all that, got them roughly leveled in and everything, then we'll check our outside dimensions again and our diagonals, and then we'll figure we're good and go ahead and put the 6x8 beams on. Now you're doing all the work there. I better get back with you, huh?
Oh no, you're doing fine. Every job has its purpose.
Yeah. What we've done is leveled in the foundation blocks. Okay, at this point, we're going to take and rough measure everything in. We're going to double check. And what we'll be doing is right from this corner here, our 6x8 beams are going to go here and parallel with these edges. And we'll take our diagonals right from this point here. So all your dimensions are going to be from the outside of this block, or for this particular foundation. Okay, Jerry. Right there. And we're 16 foot 1 inch, close enough. "16 feet exactly. Now this we changed to 22 feet. We wanted to add a couple extra feet. So this is 22 foot 1 inch. And 22 foot exactly. Okay, now we know that is close enough, so we're going to get diagonals. Just make sure the hypotenuse or the square of your foundation is square. There's 27 feet, 2.5 inches. "27 feet, 2 3/4 inches. So that's only 1/4 of an inch out. So we know we're plenty square, we're plenty good. Okay, at this point, all you have to worry about is to make sure your blocks are level. So what we do is we have a string level vial. Okay, I was going to use these J-bolts, but I probably won't on this foundation. This is a very simple little log home. Okay, what you do, get your string here level on the block. Then make sure all the other blocks in between are at the same height between that point and this point here. Okay, once you're here, you check your level vial. Okay, Bob. It's off a little bit there, but not bad enough to worry about. By the time we get done settling and everything, we can jack her level in place if we want with some shims, but we aren't going to. That's plenty good. We'll wait for a while until we see if they're in. If we've got the first couple layers of the floor on and get a little weight on them, then we'll double check this level again. Okay, over to the other corner. Over here, check your level vial. This is a little bit better than what the other one was. Bring your string right across the top of these center blocks as you come across. And see where your level vial is? It's right on. Come right over this corner. Okay, this one is down. It's got to come up about a 1/2 inch. It's about the same as what that far one was. That's okay. And we just keep sweeping our way across and checking level on all these all the way across. Right to this one. That'll give you a good double check to see if your blocks are level. Okay? Okay? Okay, Bob, come in and scan that. Full there. Okay, one good final check, because the site was unlevel from the bulldozing. So for a final check, what we're going to do is take a distance look, so that we're not fooling ourselves. Because you can look at these and they won't look right to you. So go out a long ways away and then take a look at the whole foundation on a level plane from somewhere lower. Okay. Sweep your eyeball across the top of the blocks, and you'll see if they're generally in line with each other. If they are, then you figure you got everything pretty close to where you want it. And then we'll just go ahead and lay out our 6x8 beams all the way around. Okay.
Notching the corners for overlap here, so tie the base of the walls together before the car decking goes down. that's making the notches. Jerry Senior, I should say. And Jerry's
Okay, what we're doing is cutting these so they overlap each other. What we'll do is knock out this chunk here, knock out this chunk here, turn this over, and they will overlap each other, half and half. Give more strength and we'll spike it on through here. So that's kind of what we're doing. It's kind of a phony looking one there, back. It's strong. Oh no. Already got that out. I thought the same thing. When you're doing this, you have your safety goggles on so that the steel chips from the hammer.
And of course wear gloves, because if you're using these creosote, you don't want to get them splinters in your hand.
Kind of poisonous, right, Bob?
Yes, they are. Probably more so to different people, the reaction to their skin.
All the corners and all the joints are lap jointed like that. Just cut up a half and down one and half up in the other. And they're all like that, except for the ends of that one coming in there. I didn't lap joint yet. We'll be lap jointing the 4-foot stringers. But it's a real simple way to do it. Makes it nice and sturdy. And we're going to spike all these corners. But you can see the tops are pretty flat and level all the way around where all the joints come. Looking pretty good. And by the time we spike them in and secure them, they'll be in real good shape. Make for a nice sturdy floor for just a small vacation home. How's she look?
A little short, but
No, we don't worry about that. I'm
barely.
talking about the fit itself. Yeah.
oh, fits fine.
Yeah, there's a little gap here and there, but by the time we tie that 2x6 car decking on top of there, you're going to look pretty good, tongue and groove 2x6s. And we got to run a line along the outside edges here to make sure that these are lined up and we're all square. And we're going to put some center supports down through so we have 4-foot centers. You'll see that. Yeah. Okay, all we're doing here is, see, we know that we have that notch down that center support. And so if we trim down on the other beam to level of this outer rim, all we have to do is flip that whole beam over. See? See, just like that. Over.
Perfect on this end.
There. And then she's
Couldn't
fitting
be no
perfect,
better.
see? And we just spaced them out at 4 foot. See, she flushed right in. Any suggestions here, boys?
No.
And that's what she's going to look like. This will be and then car decking right on top of that all the way to the other end. Since it's car decking and then creosote beams, I thought, well, we don't need any tar paper in there. It's going to be all tight fit underneath. And then the floor, and then the half log will sit right on top of this. So that's all there is to it. Keep fitting her in. And I'll put little temporary supports under them pieces there.
If they need it, I don't think
If they need it, yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and nail these in.
You're gonna do what? Nail them? Okay, we're nailing at all the joints just to kind of get them, keep them from flopping around. And if I bounce the foundation with a log, at least they'll all be tied together and they won't have them moving around or anything. So we're in real good shape. And that's about it here. That's probably the next thing we'll be doing. Will probably be putting the car decking down tomorrow. Because we only put a couple hours in today. About how many hours did you guys say?
3. About 3 today.
About 3 hours total. And we've got a 4-foot centers for our car decking. And you can see the car decking clear down at the other, and we've got one piece across. And they're real good lap jointed. There's some of them here in line, they're out just a little bit, but that's just because we didn't really worry about it, because all we need is a nailer for the 2x6 tongue and groove. Looking pretty good, looks like from up above. You can see the spacing. You've seen pretty well how we laid everything out. I'm up here on a big ladder. Yeah, up the cool breeze here. Yeah.
Hang a hammock from that ladder.
Yeah. But that's where she'll be tomorrow when we start laying down car decking. It's getting a little too hot to be doing anything more today. I'll probably throw some supports under there. Yeah.
That's it, Jerry, I think, for today.
All right. Okay, we've got about a 1/4 inch hanging over each end. We've lined up the first piece of car decking, or 2x6 tongue groove, with this outside edge right along here. All along there. Then, using a chisel, as we put the car decking in, you just slam your chisel in. Couldn't see you there, Bobbert.
I'll be on the other side on this one, young man.
Okay.
Put it in on just a slight angle. So when you straighten it up, it pulls it right inside.
There, and then you can just nail it right in. These car decking is a little green yet. What we've had to do with this car decking is turn it upside down in order to get a flat surface in the room. It's got the bevel on the other side, and you don't want to see that. It'll make a rough floor.
You want the grain just to be shaped like a rainbow. Because if they're shaped, if you look from the end of the log, the end of the wood, they're shaped up like this. That's how it's going to bow when it gets wet. So if your floor doesn't bow in it this way, it'll stay flat.
Alright, got that too. And what we put is a snap chalk line at 4 feet, right there. And snapped it all the way across, so that when we're laying the car decking, we make sure that we are coming in a straight line all the way down, so we don't run out of the angle by the time we get to the other end.
You want to slide this way?
We measured in 4 feet from this end, 4 feet from that end, put the snap chalk line down, and then we'll check here in a second to see if the car decking is following.
Should be awful close.
That don't look like it's going to be that far, Jer.
We're still in the gap there. The other one's tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be pretty close.
But this is a way of double checking to make sure your car decking is running. We're letting it overhang a little bit. It's overhanging. These were cut in the mill about a 1/2 inch longer. But we'll see what she's going to happen here when you get the next board in. Out here we're just nailing it straight down on the top because, hi Jake, nailing it straight on the top because the half log is going over the top of them here, and the log, the main wall log. And you toenail them in, just like that. Kind of suck them into the other ones. But they still got a little drying to do. It'll probably gap out a little bit, but this would be a good, strong, good, cool, tight floor. Hey guys, I can't catch my words today. Can't even talk. Blah, blah.
Getting too excited, huh?
Yeah.
It's looking so good.
Yeah. That's all there is to it right there. That's about all it takes to pull those into line. And with that tongue and groove upside down like that with the bevel, the chamfer on the other side, what it does is it leaves some spots on the floor where you're going to have the bad side of the cut there, where it's going to leave a little bit of groove, but it'd putty them in or something.
You don't have to worry, Larry. You won't break the camera. He's not gonna have it on you.
And we're almost to this end. We figured pretty close on the boards. I figured they'd cover 5.5 inches, and then I figured up the distance over the whole foundation and in inches, and then divided by 5.5, and ended up with the proper amount of floorboards and decking. I got 16 footers so I could go a span all the way across. So it'd just make a smoother, easier job of it. And it didn't cost that much more. But with a log home, you can use a lot of variations like this to save you money, save you time, because you can adjust the size of your home according to your needs, to make all the boards work out right and everything. Where if you have a house plan set up and you have to make some changes somewhere, you have to go through a whole design change. Here you don't have to do that. You can readjust and cut your logs to length, and it'll all work out. That's about it here. I have the half log here. We're going to overlap it over the outside edge about a 1/2 inch to let the water drip off the outside rather than work its way around underneath and onto the floorboards. The first half log will be along the 16-foot wall, and the other half will be on the other end with the big end at the opposite direction. So we'll just line it up there, go from that. Okay, what we're going to do here is we've got a flat square foundation up to the subfloor, and when you build your house you want to build it about a foot wider to accommodate the log width. If you want your 16 by 20 house, you want an 18 by 22 foot perimeter. So build your foundation just like you would for a house. All you want is a good square foundation all the way around. And what we'll do is bring in the half log. What we're going to do is with this half log here, this small end will go to the back, this back side over here of the cabin, and the other half log will have the big end this way over here. So that will start your sequence for your cabin. As you go up, it'll come back to rectangular shape every time you put another log on top of it. Every 2 sets of logs will give you a flat level surface, more or less. And this is how we towed it in. We just towed it in here. All we're going to do is horse this and up on there. We're not going to use the rigging. But it'll be real simple to get down there because we're low enough to the ground here. So let's go ahead and put it up there.
Alright, here he is undoing the chain. We've got the log levered up here. You'll see Bob up on this end, taking the swing log around. And they're just skidding it right along the middle on that middle log, that way it doesn't mark the floor.
and then they'll just take this butt end down here and swing around. You don't ever want to try to lift the whole log. Use a lever in the middle just like that. Now they're taking the lever out. See?
There, that's all there is to that. You can see it was real simple. And what I'll do is leave about a foot hanging over the back. This will be the front porch. Put it out in here. That'll give me supports for my front porch. I'll block up under, put a beam across here later. But for right now, that's what we're going to do. We'll put the other half here. You notice we have the big end out at the front there. And over here, this side, we'll have the small end this way. And we'll bring it in and spin it on this pole. You notice that rollers like this. All those rollers, you need a lot of them around. Pries, levers, pulleys, and it makes it easy. It's not hard. Everybody thinks the masses and the logs are real heavy. By the time you get them felled in the winter, peeled, preserved, drug to your site, and get your foundation done, they're going to be light. They're going to be pretty light, pretty easy to move. But don't strain yourself. If you think it's too tough, go ahead and use the rigging that we set up. But for now, that's about the easiest way you can do it. How close am I?
About 6 inches.
Okay.
Here they are pulling a half log, making sure to stay clear of the foundation. It's got a chain hooked up here. Got a nooster on the log with it hooked back on the other side. All you do is you drag that log right parallel with the cabin here, just like you did the last one. Now that's the small end there, so what he's going to want to do is bring the small end around to the other end. So they're going to have to rotate that 180 degrees.
Well, do you want to lift the small end up on there first or the heavy?
Yeah, let's do the small end. That's always easiest.
These logs are heavy, make sure you got 2 people on there.
Okay, I'll just go all the way around.
Here they come swinging around.
I'm not even straining.
No, he's not straining. He's using a nice lever point there. The leverage right in there. Hold the log over.
Okay.
How far
That's
do you want
it.
to bring it that way now?
Leave about a foot out the back, maybe a foot and a half, Bob.
You want to leave a little bit out the back there.
It's easy to move.
And overlap off the outside. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'll be running big spikes or rebar clear down into 6x8 underneath. Once I position these outer edges a ½ inch over the car decking. That way it'll give us leak off, and any rain that blows in on the wall will come off and lay off rather than catch underneath. So we'll show you spiking later on and get them exactly in position. And you're going to say to yourself, if this log is wide here and that one's narrow over there, my cabin's going to be all square. It's not. You measure from this dimension to that wall inside the log, and from there inside of the log here to the inside of the log over there, you'll find you have the same dimensions. So actually you're going to be running diagonals the same. It'll be offset a little bit from the floor, but it'll still be square. Your hypotenuse will still be the same. That's it. Okay, what we're going to do here is take this half log. We're going to take the draw shave. And we're going to trim the edge. So we get a nice little bevel on it and clean it up. After that, we're going to preserve the wood here, the floor, with wood life preservative. Keep any bugs out that might be getting in there. Then we're going to take insulation of about that thickness, lay it down on top of that, flop the log over so that flat side's down, and about a ½ inch of the half log is hanging out over the edge, so that any water that leaks off it blows in on the rain and will leak off and drip down instead of going in between the floorboard and the log. And after that, we'll spike it down with some big 12-inch spikes that'll go all the way through the log on down into the foundation. These big ties we got down here. So that's what's going to happen here. So I'll set it up, start in, show you what I'm doing, and we'll trim off some ends here too, get them to the right length. That's what we're into right here, right now. What you want to do is come from the large end of the log to the small end. That way it makes it easier to trim off. It comes right off real easy. You go against the grain, then you start gouging into the log. You take as much time with this as you want. I just like to get a little dressy. No stickers hanging off. It'll also be nice on the inside floor. Any inconsistencies you have with the chain where you sawed it in half, go ahead and knock them off with the draw shave too. Just kind of make it look good. You have some here, the chainsaw gouged in a bit. Go ahead and take them a little bit flat, just kind of fare them in a bit. So sometimes you'll move up like that. Nicer fit. Once we got the half log down, then we'll show you how to start the sequence for the first round. How to put the first big main round logs up, which those there, and show you how to lap them up, sequence them properly. That'll be in the next portion of the film. Okay, now do a draw shave. Just be careful you don't cut yourself with it. Keep it sharp, but be careful you don't saw your leg with it. It's pretty dangerous. Very simple. Now take your wood knife, paint it on here. Put some on this edge you broke here too. Just to keep any bugs from coming in. That's about all there is to that. And I suppose this is a nice flat surface, this is half log, so I think what we'll do is we only need what we need is about, probably an inch of insulation, maybe an inch. So what I've done is slabbed regular insulation in half, and slices that 6 inches wide. And by the time this squashes down a log, it'll fill in any inconsistencies in here, where it matches up to the boards, fill in any divots, and we'll spike it down and squash it flat. It'll make a real good insulating barrier. You can use anything else you want to, rubber, styrofoam foam, whatever. Suits you. See, that'll squash down there. It'll squash down to where it's only be about a quarter of an inch high. Kind of overlapping. Oh, no air will leak through. Plenty in there. It'll squash out pretty good, so. And we'll do the same, exactly the same thing to the other end. That's not all that much to it. Now we'll just take this half log and kind of roll it over onto it. Position the half log out. So it's approximately half an inch over the edge. I don't waste too much time on it. About half inch over. Step her in. And the spikes will suck her down. Man, the weight of the upper logs we put on there will suck it down too, the upper weight from the upper logs. Well, that's about right there. She's about a half inch out over. And we're using logs that are inconsistent because of their taper, so a little bit of a quarter inch, half inch, ain't gonna make any that much difference, so don't get in a big worry about it. Okay, now we take the spikes, put them in there, pound them in. Very simple. Here's what I'm using right here. I'm using a real secure holding spike. I don't know which distance I'm at here. I'm kind of using a tripod here. But there's the spike right there. And it'll go on down through. This may not suck all the way down, but with the weight and so forth, we'll make it. See, it's going to be going clear down in like this here, so it'll be almost all the way through there. So plenty of penetration. You can use galvanized if you want, but I've pulled apart real old log homes, and they've had old iron spikes in them, and they weren't even rusted hardly at all. So they'll last a long time. Sucked down within a quarter of an inch in there, so it's not bad at all. If you really want more spikes, go ahead and put a couple more. Make it a little more solid. But you can see there ain't a heck of a lot there. Now we're going to put cedar down here. 2-stop winds going through, wind cedar edging. But that's about it. Put a couple more spikes in it. Just take a hatchet and go along here and push the excess insulation in. You want to drive these down in far enough so if you drive your chains, put your chainsaw between the logs later and through between them, you won't come along and hit them. So if you have to, go ahead and countersink them down in a bit. I don't think that's going to be going anywhere. And later on, you can fill in, if this gap is left open, after you get a couple rounds on there. If this gap is left open, you can go ahead and fill it to chinking later. Put in some mortar or rubber filler, things they have on the market. But that's what you look like. Do the same thing to the other end. That's about it right here. We'll do the same thing to the other log at the other end. Okay, you can see we got this one socked down over here. Spikes in it. And if you put a quarter round along the floor edge or your carpet's going to come up against that, you can go ahead and plug it with mortar or whatever. It was a pretty quick and easy job. Did the same thing there as I did at the other end here. If you want to take more time, you can fit them a little better with your draw shave or whatever. Or stuff more insulation in there. That's a pretty darn good fit there. Our next step is going to be mounting the front log and the back half of the house log. And we'll show you how to sequence them and overlap the ends over these other logs and how we make a flat surface on the underside of the front log and the back log so it fits up tight to the floor. And here's the other fit up here. It's pretty tight. And we'll lift the other logs on, of course, with our rigging outfit. But I am short cable today, so I'm building 2 cabins at once, so I gotta go over and go out and buy me some more cable for this short lift here. So, and what I did is I picked the 2 largest 26-footers in my log stack, and that's them laying over there. Those are the ones we'll be mounting on the front end of the cabin and the back end. So this is how we secured the floor here, so the half logs. So just put them up on your wall, wood life underneath, put insulation down, draw shade the edges of your half log, put them down, overlap them over the edge a ½ inch, and spike them down. Half log is pretty straight down the side. If you have a bow on this log, it's bowed inboard to outboard in a C-type formation, then what you want to do is spike the straightest edge to the floor deck, then pull the other end in line with the edge. It's real easy to do. You just take a little wedge or something, or lever, or chisel, and force it over and nail it down. That way it'll make a straight log out of a crooked log. Over here, you'll notice that it runs out taper on the deck. That's of course because we have the big end of the log at the far end and the small end down here. And you really won't notice it. You can compensate for it if you want, but I would rather just let the logs fall where they do and line them up with the outside edge out here. Guess that's about it for this, and then we'll start on the first full logs on the cabin wall. Next scene. Thank you. Footers here. We're the straightest, largest logs in the log pile. Real nice looking logs. They'll be real easy to use. Okay, once we have the half logs placed on the wall, secured down, then we place the two largest logs from our log stack on top of the half logs. Take the large end, the big end of your next log in the series, this log here. Place the large end over the small end of the half log. That's the small end of the half log right there. Place that large end of that log over the small end over the big end of the half log on this end. Then at the front of the log home, you take the small end and put over the big end of the half log down there. And at this end, you'll take the big end and put over the small end of the half log. This will start the sequence of your cabin properly. Then roll the log into position over along the edge of the wall. The log is crooked. Has a bow there and a little bit of inconsistency down here. What you want to do is roll the log in position until the bows, any bows in the log, are to the in and outside of the cabin, like this. The log will generally have two straight sides on it. Those we want top and bottom. We want the straight edges top and bottom underneath. So put that curve to the inside and outside of the cabin. Do the same with the front log. That way it makes it easier to work and fit the next log down onto it without having a lot of fitting to do. The bow will be in and out. You'll notice that the log is aligned, approximately hanging out the outer edge here. The log is actually hanging out about 1.5 inches over the edge of the foundation wall. That's approximately where you want it for right now. A good check on this is we'll step inside, take a look down the log and see what we got there. You'll see that there is a taper underneath. You line up your eyeball along with the edge of the floor here. You'll notice the taper gets wider and wider and wider as you move on down to this end here. If we saw that this was bowing down into it and up and down, we would know that that flat edge isn't down to the in the up and down. So you roll that log until you get a nice even gap. It'll be smaller at one end because you're over the small end of the half log down there and you're over the big end down here. So there will be a taper. It won't be a perfectly 1 inch down there and 1 inch at the other end gap. It'll be a tapered gap. And so you roll your log till you get your flat up and down. Let's go look at the other side. The gap is real small. Get over here and get you lined up like that. Okay, and you got a very small gap there. Now just watch as you pan along with your eye. You see it gets wider and wider and wider until you get to this end here. But it's an even gap. It's coming, it's widening gently. It's not a lot of ups and downs from curves in the log. This front log was pretty straight. So remember to roll your log until you have the flat, the straight edge sides of it up and down, top to bottom, and your curves to the inside and outside of your log home. Like this, just take a look, and you'll see that the straightest edges are up and down. Take a look at the back one. Evenly space the ends over that hang over. Sometimes you'll have a swell butt that curves and everything else hanging it over enough where you can cut it off. Like this large end here, if it swells up and is too hard to work with, then go ahead and cut it off about a foot, where you have about 1.5 feet sticking out the end of the cabin or log home. And just eyeball along here. See if you've got a nice even spacing all along. Then you go place the logs directly over the edge where you want them. Bit of bow to it, to the inside, outside the cabin. When the next log goes up, you'll just probably look for a straighter log that'll go along and align straight over the top of it. And then if you step off the side, you'll see that the log overhangs the foundation a little bit. Okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to use a scribe, come right from the deck foundation, put our scribe right in here, take the width of this gap from there to there, then we're going to take our scribe and put a scribe mark right on across. We'll do that to each corner. Once you have your logs positioned, that's the next step. Once we have the log scribed and notched down, then we'll go ahead and put a flat on the bottom of the log. But for right now, all we want to do is get the scribe marks on there and notch the logs down to where it's touching the floor. Then we'll put a flat on the bottom of it for a seal. Okay, this is a scribe. Just two chunks of metal that were one piece at one time, with a pivot point here, angle cut on this end so you can get in between the gap in between the logs. Has a pencil taped on here, and you can see the pencil point is in line with this tip point here. It's a real crude scribe that when we fit the logs down, we'll have to fit them again. A lot of people have scribes with levels on them. That from this point here, the level tells you whether you're up or down or level in that direction. They also have levels so you're not tilted sideways, like this. You don't want to be tilted sideways or up or down from the log. So you can buy the type with the levels on them, but this here works plenty fine for me. This is just a cross brace off an electrical pole. What we're going to do is measure with this the distance between the log and the log below. This case here we'll be using the floor. We'll just be taking that dimension right there and coming across like this. This lower log is the pattern log. You want to take this pattern and imprint it on this log here. You want that pattern of this log, however it goes. If this log curves up and down, you want that curve to be on here. So what you got to do is get the distance between the floor and the log up above. Then keeping your scribe level this way. You don't want it down or up. You want it the same distance, which would actually be half this distance here. Keep this parallel this way with this pattern log, just like it shows you in your workbook. So what we'll be doing is just scribing right on across. What we want this upper log to do is to fit tightly down over this log and settle down on the floor. Then we'll fit it down a little bit more later to make it, after we make a flat side underside on the log, to fit it down tight to the floor. So for right now, we're just going to scribe this with the scribe, and I'll show you what we're going to do. So let's, I'll zoom in on the log there and show you exactly what we're going to do. with your scribe. You want this lower point on the scribe down below at the height of the floor. Open your scribe to the distance between the underside of your half log and the underside of your object log. Making sure that your level is not tilted sideways this way or this way. You want it level, or plumb. Plumb would be the word. Plumb this way. Then you also want this back edge level this way. You don't want it to be too high or too low. You want it to be right in between. Then, keeping this parallel with this log, keeping the scribe parallel with this edge here, all the way across, just take your scribe and make your mark with your pencil on this log. What's going to happen? I wouldn't get too particular, just make sure it's reasonably straight up and down. You'll be trimming it in later, so don't worry about it too much. You got this point here at the bottom of the log, this point up here touching the log up above. So what we want to do is follow the pattern of the log below, right on up and across. So I make a little trial run there, just running it back and forth to get a mark. Keeping this point level, and just carry it right on up over. Just gently come over. You'll notice that we're making a mark. And even if we come off a little bit, you'll notice we're only losing about a little bit there, maybe a 16th or a 32nd of an inch. We'll trim that in later. So just keep on coming, right on across. And it's usually easier to come from the inside up to here and then come from the outside up to here. So and that's not too difficult to do. So you've got a pretty good pattern up there. And you notice if I tilt it off a little bit, it's not going to bother too much. So what I do is just try to stay inside of this line. When I'm starting to saw, I stay inside this line a little bit. Then I can trim this edge down. I usually cup inside here, so all I have to do is trim with the knife here. With the same dimension you have here, go to the outside of the log and do the same thing. Just go to the outside. Don't change the dimension on your scribe. Do the same thing. Underneath, hold it vertical, parallel with the log, pattern log, and just come right on up across. I usually go over it a couple times just to make the marks a little heavier. So just take your scribe, keeping it vertical, parallel with the log below, and come right on across. And you'll make a nice little scribe line there. Go to the outside, do the same thing. When you go to the other end of the log, this log, then reset your scribe to a different gap. There'll be a different log, there'll be a different pattern log down there. So you want to reset the scribe to that distance down there. Let's go down there and take a look at that one. Okay, again, like I said, take your scribe, get the distance between the floor, or which would actually be the height of your pattern log. Keep this point plumb and level. You don't want it up or down. You want it kind of half, well, what would be the actual distance between the top of this and the floor. So you have that distance. If you wanted to measure up from here, this would be 6 inches. Say this is a 6-inch log in height. You'd be up here 6 inches high when you had your scribe up here. So what you want to do set your point here to the floor height, and your pencil up above here. Get your level. See, it does make a little bit of difference there. Get your level plumb. Get it tilted properly this way, level up, or vertical plumb. Then, once you have that distance, scribe right onto the log up above. Just move it right on over. So notice my point here is about half the distance of the total here. And I just come back across it, get a little more scribe there, right on up over, down the other side. And until you have a nice black mark that you can follow. See? You can always double check yourself. Go to the other side, do the same thing with the same setting on this particular end. Set it here. Make sure you're plumb. This is the proper height. Scribe your mark right on over. Just follow the pattern. Just follow the pattern log. Right on across. Little knot there hanging me up, see? That, you'll see those things as you do it, so just kind of compensate for them. Then when you roll your log over, now you'll notice that I'm making a pattern here kind of with the scraping edge too, as this point comes across. So that's what's happening, is this point is following the contour of the pattern log. And it's transposing the indentations in this pattern log onto the log up above. It gives you a nice pattern up there. And end on, this is what you'll see. Got your scribe set to this distance from there to there. From the floor to the bottom of the pattern log. You notice I made some mistakes here. I was in too big of a hurry there. But what you're doing is just keeping this level like this. You don't want it off either way. You want it straight up or plumb to vertical, like that. This here at the in-between height, and just come across, right on up and across, just like that, and then on down the other side. Easy as that. See where this edge here? It's always staying parallel with this log here. Now it's staying like this. It's going right on across. What's happening is you're going just across like that. Keeping vertical all the time. You'll see this a couple more times. Quite a few more times as a matter of fact. And you'll see why I don't get too particular about this. I don't get too particular. What I'm going to do is we're going to be cutting down to this line, knocking out the pieces, and scooping out inside a little bit, like an ice cream cone scoop would be scooping out below this line inside the log. But this edge will still be here with the mark. Then all we have to do is take a knife and trim off this edge and then make it come down a little further. The log will settle on down. But you can see, if you take a look, you'll see that this pattern is the same contour as this log right here. You'll see there's a little flat here on this log, and you'll see there's a little flat here on the line. And then you'll see that this log is not exactly round. It's got a nice round edge over here, but it's kind of long and flat planed out over here. Well, if you look at this log, pattern log down below, you'll notice that it is that way. That log is that way. So that's telling you ahead of time that this is going to fit down over here okay. Once we have this upper log notched out here, down on top of this log, pattern log, we'll see that we're bumping and hitting the floor. This here lower portion of the log will be hitting the floor. Then we'll go along and scribe along the underside of this big main log. We'll scribe along it and make a nice flat area that'll settle down on the floor, and we'll flatten it out so it fits nice and tight to the floor. For right now, just get the scribe marks in, like that. We've done it. Go to the other end, do the same thing, which we've already done, of course. And then notch it down. That's it on this for now. we'll get more of it. Okay, here on the back log, in the back of the cabin, we've done the 2 front notches. Okay, here on the front log, do the same thing on the back log. Set your scribe to the distance. Just press it up and down till you get the distance you want. Get your scribe set plumb. And also up and down this way. Half the distance right there. And just grasp it firmly. Go back and forth a little bit to make a little mark underneath. You'll have to connect them later after you roll it over. We'll just look at them after we roll them over. And just go ahead. Move your scribe right on across. See, go back and forth a little bit. And you'll make a nice little pattern there. Like I said, don't get too carried away or you'll get, just as long as you're not laying over like this. See, if you're laying over sideways like that, look at how far you are out here. You don't want to be that far off. See, if you hold her up like this, you're all right. Up and down this way don't make too much difference in height, but when you're off sideways, see, you can be clear over there or clear in here. It doesn't give you the right. So kind of watch down. If you want to, put a level on there. Come right on across. I always pick the smallest dimension, here or out here, not on this particular log, but on the next one up, because we got a nice flat floor here. But there'll be a different dimension here, inside, and outside on the next logs up. I always pick the smallest one, so that when I do cut out my notch, that I have a little bit to play with. I can go ahead and trim out later and clean up a bit and come on down. So I always make this a little shallower than what it should be. Then I can bring my scribe over here and come from the inside, or from the outside to the inside. That finishes up my mark. Practice on some other logs beside your log home cabin logs. Practice on some other logs around that place if you haven't done it before, or if you don't feel you're too steady with it. Or just go ahead and pay, they get them for, they charge quite a bit, $45, $50 for the ones with the levels on them, but I found out that I have to keep refitting anyway because of logs and fitting them down and everything else, so I don't spend a lot of time getting worried about this. As long as I'm reasonably close, that's all I care about. And like I say, I'll go ahead and cut down just a little under this line, almost to it, then I can trim up later with my chainsaw, come on a little further out as I see how much I'm off a little bit. Anyway, that's what you do. And then go to the other end, do the same thing, but you'll change your setting of your scribe at the other end because of the different distance. Hold the log up and blocked it. You can see the little blocks underneath, just to keep it in place. There's your marks. Okay, what you want to do is take your pencil and fill in across here. If it looks like they're off a little bit from each other, just ferret in. There and there. Now I knew that this outside line one was my best one here, so I'll just go ahead and ferret that right in. Ferret in right across to that line there. It gives you an oddball looking thing here when you look down on it. But